Well, do you think it's strange for a lady to be a doctor?
No. They do most of the doctoring in the world as it is.
A strong moral code, an open heart, flighty daydreams of soaring somewhere far away. Olivia Walton, matriarch of the Waltons, was and is one of TV's most beloved moms. But was Michael Learned as in love with her character as the fans were? Or were her affections actually all for her on-screen husband, Ralph Waite, the face of John Sr.? Welcome, I am your host, Nostalgic Nick, with all these answers and more. If you enjoy our video today, please click that thumbs up icon, it really helps. And subscribe to our channel so you never miss a deep dive. But now, without further ado, let's head down memory lane. Why was Michael Learned listed as Miss Michael Learned? For the most part, Olivia is a down-to-earth, stern but caring foundation for the Walton kids to lean on. But the show sprinkles in the fact that deep down she likes change, like the perm she got, or her daydream of flying around in an airplane. Well, Michael also had a background that would have Olivia interested. Her maternal grandpa was a secret diplomat for the US Embassy in Rome. Her father, Bruce, also worked for the State Department. And even though she was born in DC, her childhood was spent on a farm, along with 5 younger sisters, pretty much setting her up for a very Walton upbringing. And when the family left the farm, it was to move all the way to Austria. Talk about living Olivia's dream. What's not known, even to Learned, was the reason for her first name. The most she got out of her dad was, quote, "All he told me was that if I had been a boy, I would have been named Caleb. But I was a girl, so I was called Michael."
Becoming a woman isn't a sentence, for heaven's sakes.
It was during her globe-trotting that Michael, almost Caleb, discovered that she loved theater, and the rest was history. But her parents did give her a few hoops to jump through. The early seasons of the Waltons billed her specifically as Miss Michael Learned, just to ease the bit of confusion. But actually, Miss wasn't even always correct, and Michael would be Mrs. on and off for quite a bit. Is Michael Learned still married? Michael started doing the whole love and marriage thing when she was just 17, and her first beau was fellow actor Peter Donat. They met while she was an apprentice at a Shakespeare festival, and were inseparable for years, through thick and thin with multiple childbirths. But the marriage eventually fell apart the very same year the Waltons began. But we see Donat in the show a year later, in the episode The Prize as Oscar Cockrell, who you might remember as Olivia's past love interest. Sorry Peter, she is with John Sr.
Olivia, you're more beautiful now than you were as a girl.
And just a year after that episode, Michael ended up with a fellow named Glenn Chadwick, before they split up and she ended up with an actor and screenwriter, William Parker. Rinse and repeat one more time, and Michael Learned has settled down for good with a lawyer named John Doherty. But boy, was it a hard road to get there. Her earlier years, especially after the Donat divorce, were when she, quote, hit rock bottom. By 32, Learned realized she was an alcoholic. She ended up taking herself to Donat's cabin and vowing to, quote, get sober, and it began what she called a spiritual journey. This life-saving process started with the Waltons. Learned shared, quote, "I was full of fear because I'd been married since I was 17. Suddenly, I'm alone with 3 teenagers to raise." She added, quote, "So it was a rough time in my life. And getting that show not only helped me financially, but it also got me sober. I knew I couldn't do a television show and take care of my kids and do all of that and then have cocktails at night and go to bed a little plastered." Even though most of those marriages ended in divorce, she ended up having another soulmate right there on set. Did any Waltons cast members marry each other? As the final Walton cast, Michael was the new kid on the block. Her screen test was June 19th, and they began to film on June 28th. Someone left their homework till Sunday night, but Michael would call herself nothing but, quote, lucky, because that right there was her first Hollywood screen test. A year later, Michael had a character on Gunsmoke, who was Matt Dillon's first and only on-screen kiss in the entirety of Gunsmoke. And even as a latecomer, she clicked easily with the rest of the cast, to the point where years later, she would say, "I have 2 families now. I have my own kids, and I have the Walton kids." But did that family ever include her on-screen husband, Ralph Waite? Well, Michael admitted that every bit of loving chemistry we saw between her and Waite was 100% the genuine real deal. That the two certifiably loved each other the way soulmates do. Michael was privy to the messy, full picture of Ralph the way few others were. Enough that she could share, quote, "He was a complicated man. He had a lot of issues. He lost a daughter from leukemia, and I think that's when he started drinking. He was a minister before he became an actor. He had so many colors to his life and his character, and he was deeply honest with himself. And God conscious, I think, and complicated." Likewise, Ralph saw Michael at her most tortured, and he was the one who reached out and saved her. Learned revealed, quote, "I was drinking heavily when the show started, and Ralph saved my life, really. He pointed out that he thought I was drinking too much. I didn't think I was, but he thought I was, and I haven't had a drink in 42 years of anything alcoholic, and it is because of Ralph. I got off the train early, luckily, but he was the one who grabbed me by the shoulders and said, 'I think you have a problem.' He straightened himself out, and then he said, 'I think you should too.' Letting people in and listening to what they have to say takes quite the special bond. Describing what kind of feelings these two troubled souls had between them, Learned would say, quote, "We had a deep love for each other. In fact, they got to know each other so well because they would go out, have lunch, and drink wine together, and arrive back on set together tipsy." Yeah, that was before the whole getting sober part. They also became a team parenting the many young cast members around them. Together, as Learned explained, quote, "Ralph and I did become like mom and dad, really. We were the set mom and dad for the kids. They didn't necessarily come to us with their personal problems because their parents were there as well. The mothers were there usually, or guardians, but we were like a family. When we shot, we kidded around, so we adored each other and Ralph very much. He had lifts put on his chair so he would look bigger and very much the patriarch of the family, and I was Mama." The show brought together these 2 perfect, flawed puzzle pieces. But did they stay fitted together when they didn't have to be the Waltons? No, because they treasured their love too much. Learned said, quote, "We had a deep love for each other that we would have ruined if we would have taken that extra step, and we didn't. We never did. We thought about it, but we didn't. And I think that's why we became a spiritual husband and wife, if you will, and I miss him terribly. His wife is a very good friend, but what Ralph and I had was something that came across on screen. One of her worst nightmares was if she and Ralph had a fight. Right after they had a petty argument, she went to his dressing room crying and told him they had to make up because there was no way she'd be able to film without fixing things. So what was his reaction? Immediately hugging her. Learned is one of our best sources of memories for Ralph, as sadly Mr. Waite died in 2014 at the age of 85. For more on him and the rest of the Waltons, we do have a great Then and Now video if you want to check that one out next. But working with a soulmate and a new family, why didn't Michael make it to the end? Why did Michael Learned leave the Waltons?
Here we are, still stumbling and picking ourselves up over and over. And I don't think I can pick myself up anymore.
The love Michael Learned and Ralph Waite showed us on the Waltons was the real deal. But a chunk of Olivia Walton's squeaky clean attitude was purely an act. In fact, not only is Michael a proud, self-proclaimed potty mouth, she admitted to making tons of dirty jokes with lots of swearing. Whenever she let this side show, Walton's fans would look shell-shocked. Michael remembered, quote, "I let some kind of swear word escape once and I saw people. It almost knocked them to the floor." Olivia Walton knows that word. She also knows where those kids came from too. Gosh, Michael Learned, you are incredible. And if Michael had it her way, there'd be a bit more, maybe not the sailor mouth, but a bit more grit to Olivia. Imperfections. In fact, she tried begging series creator Earl Hamner Jr. to give her some flaws to spice things up. She told him, quote, "You've got to have Olivia make a mistake and punish the wrong child or something a little more human." Olivia was based on Hamner's real mother, to which Michael countered with, "Earl, didn't your mother ever do anything wrong, ever?" In fact, between this uphill battle, plus the growing pains of going from stage to TV, Michael was thinking about leaving the Waltons early on. After a hard battle, Michael got her way, but mostly for the first 2 seasons, and she thought Olivia's nuance really added something to the show, so it was a bummer when they took that all away. This lack of growth would play a huge part in why Michael was ready to leave the show, with only some remorse. She explained, quote, "Yes, there's been times when I've regretted it, only in that it probably would have been better to complete the whole show. But frankly, when John Boy came back with a new face and a new voice, it was like something happened. I just couldn't do it anymore." Michael admitted she had, quote, "very contradictory feelings about the show. On the one hand, she was part of the crowd thinking that the Waltons was too happy and wholesome, to the point she worried, quote, if we were selling the people a false bill of goods. She even called the show an illusion. But she's also very grateful for everything it brought into her life and the life that it saved. But jump ahead to today, Michael just celebrated her 85th birthday this spring. And I have to say, Michael Learned is as radiant as ever, and almost as active, with some film and TV credits sprinkled in, as recently as 2022. Sure, Michael Learned may have left the Waltons sooner than many would have liked, but she gave us all someone to admire, saying, quote, "Olivia Walton has nothing to apologize for. She had her integrity intact and didn't question who or what she was. It was very clear to her." Now, before we say our good nights, tell us what surprised you the most in this video. Who was your favorite character on The Waltons? If you enjoyed our wholesome deep dive, please give the video a thumbs up, it helps the video circulate. Subscribe to our channel so you never miss a memory. But most importantly, from all of us here at Do You Remember, we want to thank you very much for watching.